Today I will be talking about mygalomorphs. Mygalomorphs are primitive spiders. Primitive, not exactly like ancient or like dinosaurs, but they are primitive in the phylogenetic lineage. Like the spiders, what you see outside your house, they are quite different. They are more evolved. They are more, and that's why they are also called as modern spiders. Whereas these they are the connecting link between the previous, means the other arachnids and the modern spiders. So, okay, just hold on. Yeah. So today I will be talking exclusively about mygalomorph spiders. If you have any questions, I would be very happy to sort out all your queries relating to, especially to mygalomorph spiders, but in general about other spiders also. So as my title slide shows that I have shown different kinds of burrows. So these are the burrows where such burrows you will find spiders and mygalomorph spiders. There are other modern spiders also, like you find small spiders having a funnel web and all this, but their silk and the silk used by these spiders is very different. It's papery white, you can see over here, this one, and it is having an extension, or it is having extension like this with the grass, but everything will be lined with silk, thick papery white silk. Before I tell you more details about these spiders, let's go into a little bit of biogeography, where we all know that how the Indian landmass was formed. It was before like a big supercontinent. Everything, Africa, South America, Antarctica, Australia, India, everything was one. But different events happened and it split. And for quite some time, Africa, Australia and Indian landmass remained intact, and it was called as Gondwana land. Even South America was part of it. And for quite some time later on, then for million years, it remained as an island. India remained as an island. And you can see here over here that so many million years took it to come, and then finally 10 million years ago, it collided with the Eurasian plate. And you can see the present day, how the present day India was formed. This is very important because in the later part of my talk, I will come back to this. There are evidences throughout the world about spiders, and they show that the spiders existed even before dinosaurs were present, like before the Jurassic period. Here you can see that the 350 to 400 million years back, we have evidence of fossils, spider fossils. An interesting fact is that the spider morphologically remained unchanged from their ancestors. Ancestor spiders over here you can see, and the present day tarantula. They look alike. That makes this group even more interesting. So in general, we classify the spiders into three suborders or three major groups. One is the first one is the Mesothelea, which is the real primitive segmented spider, but so far not reported from India. They occur in the Southeast Asia and that part of the world. But here we have not so far, but maybe it occurs in Northeast India. But because of, I don't know whether it still exists or it would have got extinct, local extinction would have happened. We don't know, but nobody has looked out for it. That is the main cause that it, even if it is occurring, we have not discovered. Second group comes is the Lepidogratha or the Mygalomorphae. They are the primitive spiders, and so far 30 families in the world have been reported, and of which only 8 families have been reported from India. 2 years back, this number was just 15 families, but because of recent more advanced molecular work, many families have splitted, the subfamilies have been elevated to family levels. And that's why the current number is 30, and it will increase in a couple of more years. More research will take place, and with more molecular data on these ancient spiders, it will give more insight. And maybe what we are considering that these are the sister groups, maybe they are very far off related, and that's why the split might happen, and many more families might be come in future. And the third suborder over here is Arenomorph. Arenomorph includes all the spiders found in the house, spiders found in the garden, all these spiders. As I said, they are more evolved. They have more complex copulatory structure as compared to Mygalomorphs or Mesothelae. Morphologically, when you see a spider, you can easily distinguish both of the Mygalomorph as well as Arenomorph based on the chelicerial movement. The Mygalomorphs will have up and down, like a snake fang movement, up and down movement, whereas Arenomorphs will have sideway movement. The cheliceria will move. So even looking at the spider in field, you can make out whether it is an Arenomorph or a Mygalomorph. Another obvious morphological feature is Mygalomorphs will have, when you flip a spider, if you see 4 book lungs, these are, you can see here slit-like. If you see on the abdomen 4 slits, then it is definitely a Mygalomorph spider. Whereas only 2 slits or 1 pair of book lung is present, then it is an Arenomorph. So far, this is most poorly studied group, and only 111 species under 30 genera and 8 families have been reported from India, of which more than 50% belongs to the Tarantula family, Theraphosidae. In the world, over here, the number is that it is 31 families. It is 30 families and 365 genera and about 3,000 species. This figure includes also Mesothelae. That's why the number was. And where do they occur? These spiders prefer wooded area. So they are found in moist deciduous forest, dry deciduous forest, wet evergreen, semi-evergreen. But if these kind of forests are not available, then they go for secondary habitats like tamarind plantation, different kind of casuarina, teak plantation, erica plantation, very rarely. But yeah, if suitable habitat is not there, then these are the secondary habitats. Even in the worst condition, when everything is, these two kind of good habitats are not there, then they are also found in zoom lands, agriculture lands which are situated close to wooded area, or scrub lands like in Rameshwaram Island, where there is no good tree density or wooded area. So they go for these scrub lands also. There is an interesting story over here I would like to tell. That this is a picture of Nimessit, a burrow, and this was in 2005. I went to Itanagar, Arunachal Pradesh for surveys. So initially when you go, you need to go to Secretariat for getting long, because it was 2 months survey. I got only inner line permit for 15 days. So I had to go for extension. So from Nahar Lagoon to Itanagar, I used to go by bus. And when the bus used to enter in Itanagar, it used to stop in a very in the center of the city. And on that bus stop, it was called as BSNL bus stop because BSNL office was there. And on that BSNL office was having a vertical, it was roadside. So this maybe around 50-meter high bund was there. And this was full of like this. Maybe you will not believe that around 500 holes were there. So from a moving vehicle, I saw the first day I couldn't believe my eyes. I said, no, this cannot be of spider. This cannot be of a tarantula. It cannot be. So many in one such a 50-meter length bun, it is impossible. Second day, again, I had to go. I again tried to look and I still couldn't believe. Third day, I just got down at that bus stop and I went and looked out and it looked like a Mygolem of burrow. And still I couldn't. Then I had to excavate one of the burrows. And people were very curious standing near me that what this crazy woman is doing, digging this hole. And then suddenly everyone was scared because a big black spider came out of it. And I couldn't believe that in such a crowded place, so many in one place like that, crowded place, they were congregated. And later on, unfortunately, 2 years, after 2 years, this complete bund was concreted and the complete population was wiped out. Now, if you go to Itanagar, to that BSNL bus stop, you will see a concrete structure. There is no mud, there is no mud bunk where you will see these spiders. But these spiders occur everywhere over there. But this particular location, nothing is there. So Mygolomorphs, mostly, this figure shows that the majority of the studies in the past were conducted in the Western Ghats. That's why the number reported from Western Ghats is more. But in the rest of the India also, there are. So here is the distribution, species distribution across India. So as I showed you that how the India landmass was formed, it is very interesting biogeographically. Because of our position, this position, the present position, we have Indo-Chinese elements, Indo-Malayan elements, Palearctic elements, Ethiopian elements, of course, Gondwana elements, which occurs in the Western Ghats, and endemics. Because our landmass remained island for quite some time, and during that time, lot of taxa evolved to endemic species or genera. So I would like to start with, I will give you a glimpse of diversity. What are found in the Western Ghats, which are the Gondwana relicts. Like here you can see the new, this is new genus, which I had. So its relative is in Africa, South Africa. And then this genus, though the genus is endemic to India, but the subfamily to it belongs, it is an Gondwana relict. Here you can see another family, Barichilidae, and in that Tigidia, which has the same genus is reported from Madagascar, Mauritius, and also in India. So as I said that Indian landmass remained intact with South Africa, and that's why we have a lot of common taxa, and that's these taxas are referred as Gondwana relic taxa. Another example is Diplothile, which occurs in India and Sri Lanka. Amongst Idiopidae, the Scalidocrathus, which occurs in India and Sri Lanka, they have another group, very similar group occurring in South Africa. So they are related, but yes, over a period of time, this has evolved into an independent taxa. Interestingly, the idiops. This is true Gondwana relic taxa. This species occurs, around 112 species are reported of, and they occur in South America, Africa, South Asia, and Middle East. And interestingly, this genus has remained taxonomically, morphologically unchanged throughout its distribution range. If you pick a spider idiops from South America or South Africa, it is same as what you find in India. Same is the case with the Haligmomerus, another genus which occurs in Africa also, India also, and Sri Lanka. And presently, over here, I would like to mention that my present project is on this group, looking at how biogeographically these taxa are related to the Gondwana. Are these really, or they have independently evolved? Now coming to the Northeast. Northeast is having a lot of Indo-Malayan elements, and the best example is Gonathile. Gonathile distribution actually ends in the Odisha, and they remain very same as what is found in Australia. They look alike. The only little bit difference till whatever is found, like in Southeast Asia and Australia, these spiders make an arboreal burrow, like a trapdoor burrow they will make, but on a tree or in decaying compost. Whereas in India, they make a proper burrow on the ground, which is very interesting. So we don't know whether they have secondarily adapted to our this landmass, or they are independent, they are different genus. We don't know. I'm working on it. Very soon we will get to know through the molecular data. Another interesting genus is Letocia. It occurs in the Asia, like China, Japan, Taiwan, everywhere it occurs, and it is not wrong to say that it is a palearctic taxa, but not much study has been, and in India we have not been able to find Letocia so far, but most probably because we don't have an exact location. The location which is said in the pop-up in the text is North India. North India is quite huge. We don't know from where the specimen was collected. So that's why this group remains undiscovered, but they are very much closely related to Conothile. They look alike. And Conothile is found all around the foothills from what I have found in Mizoram, Arunachal Pradesh, also in Uttarakhand, and also in there are reports I have seen a museum specimen from Kulu Valley in Himachal Pradesh. So everywhere this occurs. So where was it a misidentification, or it cannot be a misidentification, but probably we need to find maybe higher up in the mountains, it might be occurring, we don't know. And as you all know that in the Western Himalaya, in general, the diversity is little low. So search efforts are required, more efforts are required to search these spiders. Another Indo-Malayan taxa is Nematode. These occurs in Southeast Asia primarily, but in India also. Recently, I had discovered a new genus, which is close to Atmetocylus, but still very different. That's why we had named it a new genus, Demarchilus. The subfamily Seleucosminae is very interesting group, and it occurs in Southeast Asia, South Asia, even in Australia. It could be also a Gondwana thing, but more than that, it is a Indo-Malayan group. Here you can see the Selenocosmia and Lyrognathus. There is Flagellus also and Chilobrachus. Chilobrachus can be Indo-Chinese taxa also. We need to explore more on it. Now coming to endemics. The genus Poecilotheria, the ornamental spider, we all know about this charismatic tarantula. It occurs only in India and Sri Lanka. Whereas similar groups are other Plesioflectus groups also, Haploclastus. These are all ground burrowing. People in Karnataka, they might have seen this. Thrigmopoeus, very common in forested areas. There is this Varicellid, Cerconicus, which is also endemic. Now coming to the natural history of mygalomorphs, they all are nocturnal, as I said before. They are all are burrowing in habit. They will either construct their own burrow. That's and when they construct their own burrow with their Cheliceria, they are referred as obligate burrowers. Whereas they can occupy tree cavity or someone else burrow, then they are opportunistic burrowers. The best example is Poecilotheria, the arboreal spider. They can also be categorized as a arboreal burrower or the ground burrowing forms. But whether it is arboreal, ground burrow, obligate or opportunistic burrowers, all will have their burrows lined with silk. This is thumb rule. And it is thick silk lining. It's papery. Even in, it is water resistant, and even during rains, you can see the shine and you can easily locate these. Another interesting fact about these spiders are that all these spiders are long-lived. There is very, very little information about their lifespan. I will come to that in the biology section. But before that, they have really interesting hideouts or the burrows. So the arboreal burrows, as it's arboreal in habit, they occupy tree hole, natural cavities, crevices, or under the bark, or they can make their own burrows with the silk and debris on tree trunk. There are they will not go for a deep burrow. There are mygalomorphs which will not go for a deep burrow, but a shallow burrow with a what you say, funnel-like extension. And these are specialized, and they are called as the funnel web mygalomorphs. Here, they occur in Northeast, very common. In Karnataka, Diplurate, which is now Ishnotile, and I have retained the name because just to get you, if you are familiar with the previous families, then I have retained the previous family name. It was previously under the Hexathelidae, and now it is under Macrothelidae. So the Macrothelidae is very common if you go to Sikkim, it is very common. If you go to Mizoram, then in some stretches it's common, and wherever they occur, you will see 50, 60 funnel webs together, in the sense in a small, maybe 100 or 200 meter bun. Whereas Diplothile, if you go to Kulgi or these places, on tree trunks you will find You might mistake this as a Hipesa or wolf spider. It is very much, but only when you will see closely, it will have a long spinneret, and which is a characteristic of this family member. The obligate or the ground burrowing mygalomorphs, they have different kind of strategies. So with these burrows also, you can make out, many times you can make out, they might be generic specific or stage specific, like the juveniles. Over here you can see that this is a Plesiofictus, but with an experience you will learn. If you see this kind of multiple entrance burrow with the, then it is Plesiofictus group. This with a wide extension of, here what you see we refer as a turret. It is a wide extension of its burrow with the silk. It can be flat or it can be protruding. Here you can see, here again two, but it is not a multiple entrance, but two entrances of the same burrow, or single entrance, but this seems to be a fairly new burrow, and that's why it doesn't have. But yes, many of the genera prefer simple burrows like this. Here you can see what I was referring to, the turret. Even you can identify families based on the burrow morphology. Like here, the turret is made up of grass and it's having extension. That is a characteristic of Demarchilus, whereas Theraphosidae has much more. In Karnataka, it is very common. You go to Kulgi, you go to Anshi, you will see these spiders. They are very common. Now, we don't know what made them do. They all were having simple burrows, but suddenly they became, some of the spiders have very complex burrow structure. Like here, they construct a door at the entrance of their burrow, and they are, that's why referred as trapdoor spiders, because they don't leave the burrow. They will sit inside, wait. They will have all the invisible, means through our naked eyes, we cannot see those silken threads, tripwire kind of things will be there all around their burrow. They will sit and wait, and when the, some prey or predator passes by, from the vibration, they will know whether it is a prey or a predator. And if it is a prey, they will come out, grab the prey and go inside their burrow. So that's why they are called as trapdoor spiders. You can see, if I had not marked this, it is definitely very difficult to locate this burrow, even at a close distance. It needs a very experienced eyes to locate these burrows. Like initially, when I started my research, for me also it was very difficult. Like, so what I do is, when I go for these spiders, any area, I first look out for the empty burrows. Empty burrows indicates that there is no spider inside to hold the door tight, close it. So if the spider is inside, it has to be closed. Otherwise, there is no purpose of that door. So if the spider is there inside, then it will be closed. The doors will be closed. But here, the spider is gone, so you can see the empty. If you find one empty trapdoor, definitely in nearby area or on that tree trunk, there are definitely more active burrows. Active burrows means there are spiders in that burrow. You can see here, it is just like a flap. This is also, this is in Kalijay, Chilika lake. I had found one Nemesis. It makes like this burrow. There can be a trapdoor. Very interestingly, two doors are there. One I have removed over here. So it is a Y-shaped burrow, and if I disturb from here, it will escape. The spider will escape from here. Similarly, you can see over here two entrances, one here and another, an exit door. With this, I can explain you more in detail how these burrows help them. These are mainly for escape strategies. Like you can see the Conothile, I was telling you that they are all in Australia as well as in Southeast Asia. They are arboreal in habit, having only single entrance burrow, like the simple burrow with a trapdoor. But here in Odisha, for the first time when I went for a survey, I found, as I said, that if the spider is inside, the door will be closed. So I had located empty burrows, and then I also found some spider burrows which were closed. And I tried to open, and these are barichilids. They don't have thick cork like trapdoor. The door will not be thick, it's a thin. So what happened that they cannot hold the door for long, so they have evolved this another escape strategy. That is that this is the entrance, which is this, and there is another door over here. So initially when I looked out for, though this door was closed, but I couldn't find any spider. When I tried to tease out, there was no spider. I had an assistant who was expert in digging these burrows, and he had become an expert. He cannot miss out. But I doubted him also. I said, no, you are missing out something. Come on, give it to me, I will search. And then we excavated a lump of soil and found that there was a secret door behind, through which, and this part was not lined with silk. So when the spider could not hold it for long, it will run here and close this door and sit here. So the intruder or the predator will feel that the burrow is empty and will return. At that time, it will come back and it will occupy its burrow. So we don't know what has led to this smart strategy. I'm sure some environmental factor or some ecological factors plays an important role for these strategies. But in short, that the spiders have become more evolved. They evolve strategies also. Another spider, another barichilid, as I said, it makes a Y-shaped burrow. It will have two. These spiders were found in a grassy habitat. So what used to, and a lot of leaf litter was also there. So what happens again, as I said, barichilid have very thin thin. It is not a cork-like thing. So it is a thin wafer-like door, which cannot be held for long. And this spider, if I open it from here, it will try to hold it tight. And when it cannot, it will just run here and open this door and escape. I missed out many of the spiders because they jump and they will play dead. They will not move. In leaf litter, they will be so camouflaging that whatever you do, you cannot locate. If you have missed out where they have fallen, you cannot. This is arboreal barichilid. It will have two, it is like an 8, number 8. One door over here and another door over here. Both can open. If I try to open this, the spider will escape from this door. Like majority of the spiders have the simple tube-like structure with a door. And Ctenizidae and Idiopidae, previously they were under Ctenizidae only. Then They were separated into different families, and both have cork-like. You can see the thickness of them. And these kind of burrows, it is very, very difficult to open. You can see that with the claws, it's holding it tight. These spiders spend all their lives inside. Mostly the female will never leave the burrow until and unless it is disturbed or feels threatened. Mating occurs, interestingly, I observed one of the mating of this trapdoor spiders. It is interesting. It is the spider will, we don't know with whether it is a pheromones or whatever, the silk linings, the what you say, the invisible silk linings, the trip wires around the trapdoor helps the male to locate the female. And the mating occurs. If female is interested, she will open the door and mating occurs at the entrance of the door. And later on, the male has to be very smart, finish the job and go away. Otherwise, like majority of the spiders, the female will eat the male because it is a ready-made immediate source of protein, which will help it to lay eggs. Here you can see an interesting video. This is how trapdoor spider hunts. Isn't it fascinating? Now, sexual dimorphism is not very common, but yeah, some of the spiders do show. And in Aeronomorphs, some of the groups are having very drastic, beautiful sexual dimorphism. But in Micromorphs, they are dull color because they don't need color because they are mostly burrowing forms. So there is no need of vibrant color, but still the arboreal forms have developed colors. The best example is the Poecilotheria metallica, which is peacock blue. I will show you the picture of that spider later. So mostly the size is the difference, and once the male molts, then it is over the period because it doesn't. The final molt, it takes place, and it doesn't shed its skin later on, and that's why the slightly it is slender and dull in color as compared to the female. Here you can see, yeah, slight bit of like here you can see the legs are having white patches, whereas they don't look related, but they are male and female of the same species. Here you can see that there is no difference except for the here the spines have developed and the male palpus. Otherwise, only the size is the difference between the male and female. You can see that in field also you can distinguish between a male and female, but you cannot distinguish between the immature, juvenile, or juvenile, or the female. Only the size will be there. But small tarantulas like Plesiophryctus, it will be difficult for you to say whether it is a mature or a subadult or a juvenile, unless it is very small in size. Like the best thing is to look at the short pedipalps, the short legs in the front. As you know that all spiders have 4 pair of legs and one extra small leg-like structure will be there. It is more. It is a helping in mating, and it is in female. It will be like filiform, like a finger. The tip will be finger, whereas in male, a bulb will be developed. This will be the bulb through which it will transfer its sperms in female. All spiders molt, including Mygolomorphs, and female tarantulas molt even after maturity. Can you guess why? I'll tell you. All will molt, and while molting, they will, because They don't want any disturbance. They are very fragile when they molt. They, any damage, anything, they can be killed. It can be lethal. And that's why all when they are molting or nesting, they will cover their entrances. Males mature, as I said before, that they are long-lived spiders. Females mature at 5 to 7 years. And the lifespan in females, in Indian ones, maybe 6 to 7 years. In captivity, we have observed, but it can be 10 to 15 years. Some of the South American tarantulas in captivity have lived even for 25 years. There is a record. There are about 35 to 100 or in 1,000 also. Number will be there, eggs will be there, but on an average 35 to 100 eggs will be laid, and there can be a female who will take care, will carry egg sac throughout its incubation period in its mouth or in its chalice area, or smart spiders might hang like a sack in their burrow, or like this, like a hammock in their burrow. But mortality is very high, and that's why the survival, even if one female from one clutch reaches maturity, because it takes, as I showed over here, that it takes 5 to 7 years to mature a female. During that time, they can be predated. There are several factors which plays a role. Once males mature, then they leave the burrow. But in these mygalomorphs, parental care is shown. Females take care of their egg sac and spiderlings. You will be surprised that spiderlings will live with their mother even 3 to 6 weeks after the emergence from the egg sac. Two molts happens within the egg sac, and during this complete period, mother doesn't feed. She exclusively takes care of the egg sac, the young ones. Only after they become independent, they start hunting. She comes out to hunt and teaches them also. It's a basic instinct also, but there is something which prevents them from eating each other. Very interesting observation I had made during my night observations on Poecilotheria hanuma vilasica in Rameshwaram Island. These spiders occurs in tamarind plantation, and I used to do their behavioral observations. So from evening 6 o'clock to morning 6 o'clock, every half an hour, I used to go and see what are their activity. And there was one evening when it rained, and there was a emergence of termites, and one burrow or one cavity where the spider female was there, she had around 30-35 spiderlings in it with her. And interestingly, when the termites started emerging and hitting on the tree trunk, these initially the babies will come out and they will start feeding. And in this process, it's like you have to catch, and it's a fraction of seconds. If you don't catch, you miss it. So in that process, many times I saw that the sibling, means the brother, sister, they will catch each other and immediately they will release. Similarly, even the mother, I saw mother catching babies by mistake, the spiderlings by mistake, and immediately realizing that it's my baby, and she leave. So some pheromone or something was there that it recognizes each other. But after 2 moles, they say that something happens and probably the pheromone reduces, and then they start eating each other. And that is the time they disperse. And they don't disperse. They are very poor at dispersal. So many times if you see a big burrow in Karnataka, if you get an opportunity, any forested area you go, if you see a big burrow, around it, there will be small. They are all related because they will take time. So initially they will make burrows close to the mother's burrow, and then slowly they will disperse. They don't disperse like aeronomos by ballooning, means by air. They disperse through walking. Uh, so it is more, they can be predated, there are more chances. There need to be a favorable condition, because constructing a burrow also, it's a very expensive process. So digging, so the soil should be soft, rain should be there, something like that. There are a lot of factors there which determines that when to construct a burrow. So the juveniles usually will hang out around female burrow. So as I said earlier, that the female will live in its burrow entire its life, whereas the male will live immediately after maturity. It will leave its burrow and go in search of female. And during daytime, as they are all nocturnal, during daytime, they need a hideout. So this is a tarantula in just a shallow cavity. It will cover it with the silk and it will hide. When it's night, it will come out of it, leave that place and go in search of the female. As they are long-lived spiders, they are threatened. Threatened because of the distribution, natural distribution. They are very poor at dispersal. That's why they have restricted distribution, patchy distribution, low densities. Like I said before, that in the Western Himalayas, the naturally the densities are low. So it is very difficult to locate spiders in the Western Himalaya as compared to the Eastern Himalaya. Eastern Himalayas, like other biodiversity, it's booming. If you find one burrow, you will find 10 more burrows. It is not a problem. But in the Western Himalayas, it's little low density. And they are very particular about choosing the site where they were. So this all makes them threatened. Habitat loss, fragmentation, felling of old trees for arboreal spiders like Poecilotheria. Old trees with the cavities are very important. Erosion, expansion of roads, and decline in habitat quality. And another important threat, very important, especially in India or maybe India and Sri Lanka, is collection for pet trade. And you must have seen in newspaper from Assam that people kill spiders. There is a 2-3 years back, or every summer there will be news that the spider killing humans. It is not like that, but there is a, if they, because spiders during those during summer months, the male come out of its burrow in search of female, and they enter the house or the human habitations. Because in Assam, the rural areas, they all have wooded areas and farmlands where these spiders occur. And during mating season, some like, it's like a mango. Some years there are more mangoes than the other year, right? So like that, probably during those, when the attack were reported in Tinsukia district, probably at that time, more males emerged from their burrow. It could be again due to climatic conditions, environmental factors. It might be because of temperature. We don't know, because very little is known about. But the end result is that the fear in people set in, and every year so many spiders are killed unnecessarily. They can be easily thrown out of the house or shoo away, but no, because of their size, the tarantula size, they look bigger than the rest of the spiders. They are fast in moving. They are scary, and that's why people kill them. So coming back to the pet trade, there are these many are the genera, Indian genera in pet trade. These are uh, South American, South African genera, which are in trade. So there is a story behind this pet trade in India. Initially, the pet trade was restricted to the South American tarantulas. Like here, you can see the Platypelma. They are very docile. They are bigger in size. They are colorful. So they were much more in demand in pet trade. But suddenly, CITES had put a stop on it. And so it was difficult for traders to collect spiders from South America. So the trade shifted to the South Asian tarantula, which resemble, you can see over here that they look alike. And the nature of these South Asian spiders is they are more aggressive, and people who keep spiders, they might be also interested in reptiles and like that. So the aggressive is more tempting. Oh, it's more challenging, and that's why they became again very popular in pet trade. This whole pet trade business was going on under our nose, and none of us knew. And how this was accidentally, it was spotted that one parcel had gone to the post office, and the postman saw that the envelope was moving, and they found it little suspicious about it, and they opened it, and then they found that there was a big tarantula, and they sent it to ZSI Chennai. And that's how it was found that the trade of these spiders is going on. A big tarantula, beautiful tarantula was in the package. So there is a record that between 1995 and 99, around 2,700 live specimens of Poecilotherias were imported from India into US alone. The biggest hub over here I would like to mention is Germany. Germany is biggest hub for these trade, pet trade. And later on, it was found that more than 10 species of tarantulas, including all the arboreal tarantulas, were on the trade. Here you can see, as I said before, also the Poecilotheria metallica, the arboreal spider, the gem of the mygalomorphs or the tarantulas. It is most charismatic tarantula in the world, and it was in 1899 described, and afterwards it was described from Guti, and there were several efforts done to discover it, but every time these pet traders will come, because it was mentioned that it is most beautiful tarantula, but they used to go to Guti and find nothing, because Guti was a big cemented town. So there was no forest in Guti, and these traders used to go back disappointed. But in 2001, the first time the photograph, so my previous office, Zoo Outreach Organization, a team conducted a tarantula workshop in 2001. And after that, they had gone in discovery of, in search of this spider, and they were lucky. They found, and at that time they had decided that, okay, we are not going to disclose the location. But somehow someone disclosed the location, and you won't believe, in 2002, the metallic on internet, the spider was available for sale. And in September, the first wild Poecilotheria metallica was collected from wild. Because it was just, the traders are so smart, they just need a clue that it is occurring. Then they are experts in searching this. In 2003 onwards, the juvenile, you won't believe, the first juvenile was sold at $900, a single individual, that also not a mature, immature individual was sold like that. And in 2006, a lot of, they claim that it is a captive specimens were imported from, no, they were imported to USA and Europe. And there are more than 10 sites. And now these traders have become more smarter. They have WhatsApp group. They initially on Facebook or the various spider sites, you used to find it openly. But now they have become very smart and they have different strategies for all these dealings. And still the pet trade is going on. More than 15 internet sites. This is during in 2000 time, around 170 to $500 a juvenile was sold. Why this pet trade? Can't they do a captive breeding? No, the captive breeding is not sustainable until unless wild population, wild specimen is unique, because in pet trade, you need the offspring also to have as beautiful color, as beautiful and big like the previous generation. And that's why wild genes are required every time to keep the size and the color. And none of the Poecilotherias are listed under CITES, though Sri Lanka and India have been trying. Even before this lockdown, this year, there in CITES, our Poecilotheria was supposed to get, means there was, we were requesting CITES to consider Poecilotheria or to list under CITES. But unfortunately, that workshop got, that conference got cancelled because of the lockdown. Also because of the lack of awareness among the foresters, airport authority. Over here, I would like to mention one incident where the spider, we got information, my previous office, the Zoo Outreach Organization, they got it. And they gave information to the one port authority that so and so person with such a passport is going to come and he might have spiders, because a trader, we got information and gave. And you will be surprised that the person was caught and even called, checked, and the local forester, the airport authority people felt, oh, only few spiders, and they left it. We don't know whether they left it with the spider or not, but the person was allowed to go. So this is because of lack of awareness. So we had conducted since 2000, a lot of awareness program was primary data, because here even research community was not much aware. In 2001, when Zoo Outreach Organization conducted hands-on training on these tarantulas, very few people had seen these tarantulas in wild. So even the research community who were working on reptiles, working on different kind of fauna or taxa, they were also not very much aware. So we started a project to gather primary data, and we started reporting to the ministry and a lot of education activity. Also, outreach activities we conducted through various education groups, school children and like that. And finally, in 2008, we managed to list 14 tarantulas under IUCN Red List and under different categories. Like some were threatened, some were really threatened, like critically endangered Poecilotheria Hanumas vilasica and Poecilotheria metallica. Metallica because huge pressure of collection from wild, and it was found in a very depleted, very degraded forest. So it was highly threatened, and that's why they get under critically endangered status. So as I said, that we conducted a lot of education activities for foresters, schools, and local people to create awareness. So this is what I did for maybe 13 years. This is my, and yeah, working for so long, but still, I would say that there are a lot of things to discover about these spiders. I know very little. You know, even if you spend whole life, then also there will be lots of things undiscovered. So even if you catch hold on one genus or one family, then also you can spend whole life, and you will still feel that that time is less. And these have really lot of secrets, lot of potentials to work on. Thank you.